The next part is the SAM Space app, which uses an array of lesson plans. So I'll just sign in. So here I'm using a new kind of interface. And this interface allows me to use all the lesson plans that we've created. These are lesson plans that are tied to the coding curriculum, but I go further into design, biology, maths, and even music. So I'll just pass it around if you want to have a flick through. The way the system works is very easy. We use the same blocks we were using before, but in a new context. Here, I'm turning on the button. When I turn it on, I can start connecting it and pair it on my interface. So I'm pairing the button. I will pair one light, and I will also pair one DC motor. Now I've got the three blocks connected and paired. So if I want to use them, all I need to do is drag them on my interface. So here I'm dragging a button on my interface. And if I press on my button, I can see it being pressed immediately on the interface. I get that direct feedback that's very important to students. I can also decide to set up systems without the hardware blocks. So if I don't have the hardware blocks, I want to set up something in the classroom without having students just tinker around, I can just grab things on the interface and have them working just with a finger press. We'll get stuff working, it's more fun. So here, I'm going to create a wireless system using a button, a light, and a motor. Here, to connect the button and the light, I don't need to wire them up. I don't need to code anything. All I need to do is just draw a line between them. And now, if I press on this button, this light turns on automatically. But I can start coding. And coding is also about changing variables. So here, to change the variable, this light, I can drag around and choose a color. Say I want to choose a color blue. So if I press on my button, the blue light turns on. I can start choosing a different color pink. Or I can even stay with my finger press and just cycle through the different colors here. But coding is about automating systems. Here I've had to manually go inside of my interface to change all the colors. That's not scalable. It's not automatic. So let's create an automatic system that changes the color. I can go through all of my behaviors, and coding is about taking behaviors, or also known as functions, and putting them in bits of code to create a new system. So here I've got computer functions, internet functions, command functions, behavior functions, number functions, timing functions, even Boolean logic functions, and even more. What we've essentially done is we've taken this whole software engineering, put it into little apps that can be input into new systems. So here I grab the RGB function. And so if I press on my button now, we have new colors. Every time I press, a new color appears. But I still have to press. So how about I create a system that once I press, it automatically updates the colors. So here I grab a little interval block that I can put in between. Now, I can decide that every 200 milliseconds, if I've got the button pressed and the button is a value of true, the light should change color on its own. And that's what we're seeing here with the RGB. It's changing on its own. As I said before, we don't even need a button. If we want to create a system with only a few limited amount of parts, I can just use a digital button. I'll just put this one here. And if I press, the color changes. But 1 second, I have to keep my finger down. And what I want to do is I want to create a system where I don't even need to use my hand. I just want to turn it on and then I can go and do something else. I want to automate it. To do this, I grab a new function. And that function is called the toggle function. If I put it between them, the whole system is now automated. I can press once on my button, and once it's pressed, the system now updates. And once activated, it changes the color. We can also use SAM to make things move. So here, what I'll do is I'll just connect my button to this motor. So once I press on my button, the motor moves. But how about I create a little function that ensures that the motor only moves if I've met a condition. That's called conditional programming. So here, what I'll do is I'll simply go in my command blocks and I'll create a new logical path. I'll need to count how many times I press on my button. So I grab a counter block. I also need to count and compare that amount pressed to a certain value. So I grab my compare block, and I'll choose exactly equal to 4. So here we'll see how this system changes. If I press once, it goes up a value of 1. Twice, we see a number 2. 3 times, it's 3. And when I press 4, the motor will turn on. But since it's only 4, after I've gone to a value of 5, the button stops. And we can create these whole systems to build more and more things. Say we want to use Sam as one of these lesson plans to create music. Well, or, first of all, I can use these blocks. As before I was using this as a controller for a car, I can now use it as the body for a robot. I'll use the light as an eye and the motor as the legs. I'll restart. I'll say that it should restart every time we reach a level of, let's say, 7. I'll make sure that the motor doesn't go too fast. So I'll adjust the speed. And I will choose this. Oops, I will choose this now as a value of 5. So I've changed all the variables. And now, if I press on my button, I see we get to a value of 1, 2, 3, 4. And now when I reach 5, the little robot will turn on. And it starts moving. So I've created another context with exactly the same blocks. So let's start creating music. So now what we can do is I can grab the sequencer block and the virtual buzzer block. And now I can start creating a little score of music using my sequencer here with adjusting the tempo. And now creating a series of music that can dance with the robot. And all of this ties in very, very nicely. We were playing 2 seconds ago with almost very instruction-led apps that were telling us step by step how to build things. We've now transitioned to something that's led by lesson plans that allows us to build more and more things.